Hi, it's Jessie. I'm back again. And today I'll be presenting on solving the world's issues one step at a time. Yes, it is a major feat and an impossible task. But I think if we break it down a little bit, if we examine a few little details out in the world, if we shrink things, way up in the clouds, everything is confusing. When we get up in this place where we sit over the world and judge it and say, okay, you do this, you do that, you do this, and we say how to fix it, there's so much confusion up there because you see things and you think, oh, if you just do this, then everything will be right. But nothing is ever right, because when you're sitting up there in judgment up in those clouds, you don't get the inner workings of man, you don't get the nitty-gritty of things. You don't get how, people interact. You don't get like the nature of man and what his capacity is, what his hopes and dreams are, what he cares about. So it's not really helpful for someone to sit up in the clouds and declare to somebody else what is going to save them, right? But I think we can help the world if we examine some of our ways, you know. I've had some experience with some trauma in my life, some experience with some tyrants sitting over me, some experience with where I give my all, and at the end of the day, I'm still not good enough, and I'll never be good enough, and it's all my fault that things don't work out the way that they're supposed to. So I know a little bit about like different kinds of leadership and like what their outcomes are that other people don't discuss, right? Other people out in the world say these are the qualities of a leader. And if you look at these qualities, they happen to have something in common with like a sociopath, They they are able to manipulate, subdue, and control the people, right? But that's not the best kind of leader in my opinion. Those are the kind of leaders that, you do give your all to. You bust your rump in service to them, and you'll never be good enough, and you'll never meet the goals they set because they have unreasonable expectations. They set you up for failure and you don't even realize it. It's like they're toying with you, like they're having fun with it. you know like their purpose in leadership is to see what they can make you do. you know and then there's other kinds of leadership. you know Let me go to my first slide and we'll discuss this a little more in depth. Okay, so on one side, on one kind of leader, these are some traits that I have universally found common with all the tyrants that I've ever known. So first off, we're going to say that they need an enemy. You know, they will sit and they will draw power from people by talking bad about someone else. They will rally people to their cause. They will condemn anyone who doesn't join their cause. Like if if you're friends with them, then you can never be part of our group. They demand you to pick sides, and they demand you to pick their side in particular, even if you don't agree with their opinions or their judgments or their goals. Because if you're not in line with them, you're an outcast. So you have to pick sides, but not just pick sides. You have to pick their side. And then once you're on their side, you have to get in line with everything they believe, because if you're not in line with everything that they believe, then you know you can't be part of their group. Everything has to be completely universal. They work appearances for perfection. They have this unity thing going, but it's not really unity. It's working the appearance of unity. They boast superiority, right? But it's not really superiority. It's like it's a bandwagon. It's mob rule. It's people don't fight against them because there are too many of them, and it's no use on fighting them because they're going to run you around in a circle. You know, you say one thing and they start attacking you for questioning. Them doing something wrong. They're like, "Oh, this is a witch hunt." you know, they're like, "Oh, you're lying. I just saw you do it. Oh, you're lying." You know, they say things like that. It's ridiculous. And then they have these unreasonable expectations for the goals that they have set. They want everything done all at once. And if you can't meet their demand, then you can't sit high with their team and you're cast out. You have to have the best performance, and they want everyone the same, so they're going to educate and groom everyone to be the same. And they do crack the whip on you. It's either you do it or you're out. And when they fail, they're real good at pointing fingers and scapegoating people. They love a scapegoat as much as they love an enemy, because it gives them purpose in life. you know they usurp resources. They waste a lot of money doing stupid stuff. And none of it is beneficial, but it seems to benefit their friends. You see, it seems to like produce contracts for the benefit of their friends that provides no benefit for the community. Like there's millions and millions of dollars, billions really, going into immigration, but in a lot of areas they're being housed in homeless shelters for, you know, they got a limit on it now for 60 days, and then they're put out to the street homeless, or they can apply for an extension. They might be granted one, you know, but billions and billions of dollars. I mean, my goodness, they could actually build a city for like what they're spending to care for the migrants when they're living in open dorm settings in like rundown buildings. They got asbestos and water leaks and plumbing issues and all kinds of things. And we're spending like billions of dollars for this. It's ridiculous. Like I said, they usurp resources, they waste them. They don't think long term. And part of me wonders if that whole immigration, the way they're handling things isn't just to make them uncomfortable so they'll go back home. Because this kind of leadership, it does things to undermine your success. It kicks the legs out from under you. It makes you unhappy so that you'll quit. It squeezes you out rather than confront you and deny you, like asylum. You know, it'll squeeze you out rather than deny you asylum, right? And it's ridiculous. It's afraid to confront anybody, though it weaponizes people against other people like crazy. It always fights through somebody. It actually never confronts its own problems in its own party, right? Um, so what else do I say? Oh, and they cripple people by eliminating alternate routes. So remember I said they groom people on the same path. Everyone has the same uh, education. Everybody gets on the same agenda. Everybody likes the same TV shows. And if you don't like what they like, you're out. And if you like, let's say, if you like country music and we over here like rock and roll, you're out. You can't be on that path and hang with us because you might not enjoy music and you might be a buzzkill to our group. You see, I'm just like giving an example of how they eliminate alternative routes. Another example in this country, like they made it impossible for people to get a job without a high school diploma starting back in like the 80s, right? people with a GED had a real difficult time in finding employment if they only had a GED or no high school or no GED at all, no high school diploma at all, right? But, like 50 years ago, um, actually like 70 years ago now for my father, right? He only went to 6th grade and he did the equivalent job that a mechanical engineer by today's standards would do. So how is it someone with a 6th grade education could perform at such a level, you know? There's such a level that he didn't just work in his job, he went around the country fixing these machines, right? Like a mechanical engineer, right? That was his job. He was a machinist. That's what they called him way back when. Um, and today you need a master's degree for that, right? So they kind of squeeze people out, eliminating alternate routes. You can't just be trained on the job. You can't just get to know things. You can't troubleshoot and study under somebody. And that path was eliminated. You got to have a high school diploma. You got to go to college. You got to go to this. Now they're kind of relaxing things. You still need that high school diploma. You can get by with the GED. I got into college with the GED and ran straight A's. But y- by and large, most people can't do that. You know, so it's an understanding that they make this an absolute necessity when it wasn't always the case. That there are other routes that the diploma in and of itself doesn't guarantee that the person is going to be of character or intelligence, or they have that No Child Left Behind Act now, and a lot of children just get passed. Just showing up to class is a C. It's not that they have the skill, but now that we all have the diploma, we're all expected to be able to perform on the same level. And because we can't all have that maturity to perform on the same level, we sometimes get people who don't belong in positions put in positions, and they screw up majorly. Like you put a young boy in a position where he's got access to national secrets, and then he goes on Discord and discusses them with other kids, you know, because he's a kid himself. He didn't have the maturity. You know, this educational system, it doesn't produce character. It doesn't produce work ethic. It doesn't produce. Oh my goodness. What it gives you is, by and large, someone who has sat through this class for 4 years, in high school, someone who has sat through all these classes for 4 years, and they may be proficient or they may not be, but they're going to be able to last in the 9 to 5 because they've already done it here. They they condition people to be still, basically, because not everybody can learn the material, right? So, alternative routes are sometimes necessary. Sometimes it's best if somebody doesn't sit through those 4 years, who doesn't have the faculties to be able to do something like calculus or geometry. Algebra may be necessary, right? By and large, a lot of it is. But someone who doesn't have the faculties to do physics and chemistry, but who has the faculties to be good with their hands, say in mechanics, where it wouldn't be wasting 4 years of their life if they just went into a trade school. And granted, there are some trade schools in the city, like by and large, they're not available nationally. So I do see where they are making some corrections for this, but I'm also seeing that, um, there's there's a breakdown in the system because people are not prepared to be where they are, because the educational system that we have is not producing the results that we need for these positions, right? So that's one kind of leadership, right? These this leadership, it's got an inflated ego. It doesn't know who it is, which is why it has these unreasonable expectations and doesn't meet its marks, right? But on the other side of the spectrum, and again, I'm not cutting anyone down. I'm just pointing some things out and hoping that maybe some people can refine their character, because I don't need an enemy and I don't need to cut anybody down. I don't believe that taking life from people gives me more life. But I do believe that when people are aware of things, they say, "Wow, I've been doing that? What a dope I am. Let me stop doing that today because I really want to do better and I really want to be better and I really want to live in a safe world that I can trust and I really want my country to do good. I want my people to be happy, you know?" So I'm not standing against anybody. I'm standing for a better way, And this is the part that most people don't understand. You can fight against something all day long, but really you're just going to add fuel to that fire and you're not going to solve anything, you know? But if you come over to the other side, and we have leaders because they need a community to lead. They see a need out there and they want to address it. They cultivate the character of the people. They say, "Young man, it's okay. It's okay if you're not perfect. Everybody needs a job. And it'll come to you. Just give yourself a little practice. Just just give yourself some patience. Don't give up. Don't feel discouraged. We all gotta learn. Someone who cultivates the character in people and makes other people into being people that can be trusted, you know? Um, they elevate everyone into positions of value. They don't throw people away. They don't say, join my team or get out. They get along with everybody, whether they're like them or not. Um, they work through humble collaboration. On that other side, they like to hoard innovation. They like to hoard innovation so they can capitalize on it. They bring innovation into um, developing nations and they put them deep in debt to where the country collapses so that they can make a few bucks off them. But over here on the other side, we work through humble collaboration because we rise together. So we take initiative to solve problems when they're not our responsibility. And we build to accommodate everyone and we share information and technology freely so that everyone can benefit and make contributions. Because when these countries go down, when these countries go down, and this is the problem with immigration, okay? When these countries go down and their people have to flee, those people are going to come and be a burden on the rest of the nation while they seek asylum from the violence in their country because they had to come down there and put in some high speed internet and bankrupted the nation doing so. You know, it's not worth it. It's not worth the cost on the nation that one man should be so profitable. The guy who invented penicillin wanted penicillin to be available to everyone for free. So we really need to think about how we're collaborating to make the world a better place. And we need to think that when we come in here to capitalize on our innovations, on our technology, is this really helping us or is this going to hurt us in the long run when we bankrupt the nation and everybody comes to the US for asylum? You know, is that a problem that we caused and do we need to be responsible for that now? Those are some questions that a good leader asks, one that's concerned with the community, right? So let's keep going. Um, and a good leader, it recognizes that there is not just one path. There's not just one path. Like I said, I recognize that they're putting up some trade schools in like Chicago where the kids come out and they can be a mechanic or they have other career paths available to them. But by and large, those are not available nationally, and they need to be, you know? Those are like pilot programs to see how they work. They're gonna work. They're gonna work. Make them more national, make them more widely available, you know? You'll build a better nation if you educate the people on the path where they can belong, where they have skills, where they're not just going along to get along and seeing out in their math classes, you know? When we got to focus on building better nations, right? And we do that by cultivating our people, by putting them in places where they can grow, you know, not where we stunt them and cripple them and we got them so frozen time they develop mental illnesses. They start imagining what they can do, and they are always going to something negative because they have nothing purposeful in their hands, no purposeful opportunity to make them think about the good things in life. You know, these are these are things that come about when we have people on the right paths where they belong. You know, they think about the good things. So, and also on this good side, we all go at our own pace and we find the place where we belong and we contribute. If you want people to contribute in your nation, you have to realize that people don't contribute where they don't belong. Volunteers have fell off in our nation. A lot of people don't volunteer anymore at all. They feel no obligation to. It's always someone else's job. They don't have time. They have too many responsibilities of their own. And so they make no contribution. But when we start seeing that we are all responsible for our nation and we want to build our better nation and we want to belong here, then we start looking for ways to contribute, you know, like I'm making these videos right now, and maybe when I feel better, maybe I get out there and I go back to volunteering again, you know, maybe I don't know. It's something, right? We have to focus on where we are, contribute where we are, and then when we come up a little bit, we contribute a little more there, you know, so on and so forth. The the cycle is positive. Next slide. So this slide I titled "War for Unity." And I say that's a strange title, right? And when you have tyrants for your leaders, I'm trying to educate you here, right? When you have a tyrant for your leader, they have ways of gathering people together where they strip all the resources from you and then pretend like it's your fault or the fault of your benefactors, right? These are people who conquer nations just to take all of their resources. I'm talking about these leaders in particular, right? Who go out and bleed nations dry. Well, they tax them and offer no benefit to them. But when they start like losing their grip on them, right? Then they like to pretend like it's their duty to preserve the kingdom, and they must go to war. And in doing this, they kind of they drain people even more of their life, you know? Like they take all their life from them until they're so unhappy. And then they create an enemy so that they can bring unity in their nation. And really they're just sending these kids to die. And it's all a scheme. It's it's just a play for power, right? So I wrote down these little notes, and you can read through them. I I said like it happens because people don't see, because they're taught that their leader is the only thing standing between them and utter destruction. Like if this person wasn't their leader, someone else would come and invade them, right? Someone else would come and attack them. Someone else would strip away their rights. Someone else would perform some injustice, right? Or the people have been taught that they're powerless, and they learn to be dependent. See, this is where I was talking about education before, where like all the opportunities are eliminated if you didn't have a high school diploma like 20 years ago, right? Um, and so you think that the quality of your life is the responsibility of your leader or your government, and you've learned to be helpless, right? You forget to be innovative. Like you sit there and you say, I've got no opportunities available to me. I have nothing to do. You know, you can always build right where you are. It doesn't take a license to walk outside your door, but if you start doing some things, then you show you have purpose, and maybe then you get license, and maybe then you build a company, like these guys in Chicago who started up this thing called My Hood, My Block, My City. They're pretty amazing with what they did, but not everyone in Chicago is part of that, you know. It you you have to understand that it's a learned helplessness that people are suffering from, that are the way that we groom and educate people. It cripples them. It's bad leadership, but I'm not condemning the leaders. I'm saying we've been fed bad advice. I'm saying we got these ideas of what's right and wrong, and we're not really understanding them ourselves. And so we're following things, and everything is confusing. And we're forgetting, like, down here in the lower level, where we get to work out and solve the nitty-gritty of things, right? um I don't know if that made sense to you all. It's hard to explain, which is why I wrote down these little notes and trying to help you to understand, like, where I'm coming from, and the things that I understand, right? Mainly when I wrote this, I was thinking of the people over in Gaza, right? How their leadership, Hamas, they kind of usurped all the resources to build the military, right? Um, and the reason why I wrote this slide is because they asked me, like, should they be eradicated or redeemed? And I think that question is too general. I think it's too big for this, because first off, Hamas is something that starves the people and then points the finger. We have Israel being accused of being an apartheid state, and I know sometimes they do appear that way, especially particularly now with all the violence going on, you know? But I think that if we take time to cultivate people, to help them to understand that anybody who's sending you out to fight for them like this, they're they're not giving you life. They're not fighting for your life. Um, let me take it to my next slide, and maybe you understand. I say it's foolish to think that you can find life for your nation by attacking another nation, because you'll only find more death. You know, they bleed the life out of you. They don't even care what happens to you. They knew that Israel is, you attack them, they attack you 7 times harder. They knew the standards that Israel keeps, and yet they keep on bombing them. And now the nation is laid waste, right? And all these people are going to be homeless. They're starving, you know? And everybody's like all up in the air mad at Israel, right? And I don't condone everything that Israel has done, but I will say that people cannot live this way, where people are fighting back and forth like this all the time. Israel gives charity to them, and then Hamas builds bombs and shelters. They do these things. They attack Israel, and then they point the finger at Israel as depriving Gaza. And they weaponize the people against people. So Israel and the Gazan people, they are not getting along. And it's all about how their leadership has cultivated the people. And I'm not saying Israel gets a free pass for anything. I'm not choosing sides. I refuse to choose sides. But I am saying that we can look a little bit at this and, you know, we can do better, you know? So let's let's talk about doing better for a moment. Let's talk about it because no matter what your resources are, you know, you got to set your table. Your table, your table. It's going to determine how is God going to bless your nation. If Well, I'm going to get into my next slide if I keep talking. Let's just review what's on here. So it's if the way that you set your table is going to determine how God blesses your nation, the purpose in life that people strive for in your nation. It's going to say what your national identity is. We're a people of charity. We're a people who are loyal. We value our neighbors. We lift them up. We don't stab them in the back. We don't point fingers. We build our life. We don't have much, but such as we have, we give. We bring it together in unity. We make more. We don't have land. So we innovate like China and we build vertical planters. I don't know what they're called. The vertical farms in China where they're no longer planting in the ground, but they got these lines that go up in the air rotating with planters. And it's the most amazing thing. I was like, that's pretty ingenious. They should do that everywhere, you know? So I'm saying you got to think about what are you producing? What are you contributing, you know? And then you also have to think of when you're setting your table, how other nations will interact with you. Will you go to war with everyone? Will you put the burden of your nation on other nations? Will you devour other nations to avoid doing the work that you're obligated to do? Will you take responsibility to cultivate your own people, to take responsibility for building the nation, right? And then you have to be smart about God because God is the source of all. You got to learn to talk to Him in ways that allow Him to respond. If you pray for the destruction of your enemies, then you'll never see God move. Why? Because your enemy is just as important to God as you are. And you cannot forget that. You cannot live at somebody else's expense. You have to build your own life. It's okay to have help from other people, right? When they're giving it to you, but you cannot take the life from other people. It will cost you your own, right? So I want to come down and I want to be clear that you can prosper in bondage if you partner with God. And this might sound totally irrational to everyone, but you can prosper while you're in bondage if you partner with God. How are you going to prosper? Right? It might be that you don't have the strength, you know, to go on. It might be that you don't have the strength to be happy or enjoy or be friends with someone, to go out and enjoy life with other people. But if you have kids, you suck that up and you put as much goodness into your kids as you can so that you develop them with good character and nothing that's going on around you gets in them. Because this enemy that's out there, he wants to be justified and he's provoking you to respond so he can um, oppress you more. And when you learn this, you cultivate your children and you teach them not to worry about other people, right? Not to get involved with that nonsense. You guard them so that they're not caught in the middle of your battles. And you press forward with goals, even when there's resistance, because there's going to be life eventually. And in giving them life, you find your own life. Okay. In this, you prosper in bondage. And then you're able to come up here and speak to other people, right? So, what else do we got up here? Um, these are ways you can partner with God, right? You can innovate and you can get creative in meeting your own needs. These vertical planners that the Chinese got going on, that's pretty cool. You know, I don't know if there's available soil for them to do something like that to grow their own food. You know, I know they have like goats and things like that because you Yeah, I've seen those on TV, but I don't know how much cows they have or if they have pigs. I know like Muslim people, they don't eat pork, but do you know if you put a pig in a pen in a yard, it will get that area cleared and prepped for planting. You don't even have to do the work. The pig will do all the work for you, right? You put a cow in there and it fertilizes soil real good, you know. You're prime for planting. You can grow your own food. You don't have to be dependent on other people, right? You get creative in meeting your own needs and you don't have to, be dependent. So, in order to do this, no one can do this by themselves. You try to do this by yourself, it's too expensive. But you bring it together, you can unite, you can collaborate, you can build. Other things you can do, you can celebrate, honor, and enjoy life. You know, you give thanks for the breath in your lungs. You give thanks for a new day. You give thanks for strength. You find joy in seeing the happiness in other people when you can't find your own. You honor people when they show acts of kindness. Maybe they hold the door. Oh, the world's still a good place. Thanks be to God. Um, but if you're willing, um, while you're doing all these things, right, this is the hardest part, right? Because if you're willing, God will command your enemies to give you everything that you need, you know, and then it's up to you to multiply it and make it prosperous. Next page. So, this is my warning for everyone. If you kill your enemy, you may lose your source of prosperity. Because when you have nothing, you do need someone to help you. And when your enemy has you pinned down, they're not going to kill you. They'd be in too much trouble. They have to give you charity because all the wrong they've done to you, all the life they've sucked out of you, God would kill them if they did not feed you. So let's be clear. God would kill them if they did not feed you. So now you got to get creative and innovative and learn how to be um, learn how to multiply things so that you can become independent while you're dependent on them. You got to multiply things. If you're not able to multiply things, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a real hard time because you're never coming out of bondage. If you don't learn how to prosper in bondage, you're never getting out of it, right? So that's just I've been through bondage, I know. I know. I've been through bondage. I know how it goes, okay? I understand when the Jews say that the Egyptians got so mad because they tried to, oppress them. They'd pile the work on and somehow the Jews still prospered. Their nation grew larger, they prospered even more. So when I know and that might be a hard pill for some people to swallow, but sometimes you got to learn something from somebody and understand, like the Jews say, it's a commandment to enjoy life, and you have to find the joy in it somehow, right? And sometimes you have to do that while you're living in bondage, while someone's over you, while they're piling things on you, while they're making life impossible. You learn to prosper. You partner with God in it. He will prosper you. You know so let's go to the next page, right? So the question is here is do you want to be right or do you want to do right? It's a real question, right? And I caution us that our ideas of justice are robbing us of a prosperous life. There are some things that are just out of our hands. No matter how much we want to, we cannot make other people do right, nor can we hold them accountable for doing wrong. And if we try, we're going to waste what life we have left in trying. These people, they lie. They lie all day long. They get people to lie for them. They don't know how to tell the truth. It's the most difficult, frustrating thing in the world. They hedge you in and fence you in with false accusations, right? It's impossible. Now, stop caring about them. Take your judgment out of their hands. Make it non binding to yourself, right? Have this belief that God will restore you. And you don't need anything from your enemy's hands to make that happen. If they show you charity, great. But if their charity comes at the expense of your life, then tell them no, thank you, because it isn't charity, it's an offering to cover their own wrongdoing, and they can't bend you over a barrel to make you forgive them so that you don't retaliate, because that's what they really want. They're trying to get you to accept the injustice because they're afraid that you're going to come back for them. You know, they fight as a team. You come at them one on one, they just don't know what they do with themselves, right? They're venomous and they make the world look very dark, but the world is not actually as dark as they make it out to be, because actually, if you believe in God, you don't retaliate, but you also don't participate in the workings of iniquity, which is what they do. And so it's perfectly acceptable to turn your back on them and trust God to restore. However, if you must take from them, believe that God finds you blameless and their offering does not reconcile them. Take what you can while you're broken, and then you must commit to doing right. You have to build right where you are. You have to innovate, collaborate, and work your tail off until you see the harvest of your own hands, right? Do right. Forget about being right. They're going to say what they're going to say. Prove them wrong by doing right. Worry less about being righteous and more about standing upright. How to fix a broken world? Well, Howard Thurman said that what the world needs is for people to come alive. And he was right. People are bent over, and they don't even know it because they are too dependent on other people to tell them everything. We are about the dumbest people in the world. We think we're so smart because we went through 12 years of high school, right? We think that we just know everything because we can quote Plato, and, we can do difficult math equations. We've got our periodic table memorized. Um, but our knowledge is misleading, and there's a cloud of confusion that surrounds everything, and no one really knows what the best thing to do is. So, what's the best thing to do? The best thing, the first thing to do is to stop fighting, right? We have to realize that those who fight seek to be justified in taking life from others, and there is only death there. We have to recognize, and I'm not saying to be a pacifist. Don't get me wrong. If you hit me, I got a reflex, okay? I might hit you back. I got a reflex, right? It's a natural human thing. Um, but when we're in this fight with the appearances, where they're just trying to ruin your reputation, fighting them, you're going to exhaust yourself, because they fight with armies, they fight through people, and you have character and integrity. So you stand alone and say, no, you're lying. And meanwhile, they just keep growing and growing and growing and trying to head you in with a bigger wall and a bigger wall and more people and a bigger wall. And it's just a waste of time. So forget them, forget what they say. Let's move forward. There's only death in trying to make them do right. So, like I said, we got to stand up. We got to assess what we have, what we need, and what we want, and develop a plan forward. We have to say, what's our agenda? What do we want in life? Well, I actually do want to make the world a better place, and I think that if we came out of some um, cognitive dissonance, some stinking thinking, if we came out of some of our irrational beliefs and really started to take notice of, like, the things that we look up to and what we consider strength, and if we really looked at ourselves and said, who told us it was supposed to be this way? We're really destroying the world. And if we really just, like, committed to building a better world and said, okay, how do we do this? I can't go by myself. No one goes by themselves. Either we rise together or we die together, right? So we have to decide who we want to be. And we have to decide how can we contribute what we have back out into the world. Like, I'm smart, but I can't talk. I'm like a Moses, but I need an Aaron. Me up here, I'm rambling on, trying to explain things that I don't even know if you understand, right? So the next part is you got to keep building. And then when you plateau, when you reach your height, when you are where you want to be and you're comfortable, don't relax because you're going to get bitter up there and start being judgy, right? But instead, recognize that this is the point where you're actually ready to be a leader, where you come back down and you say, hey, I remember I went through that. If you do this, you'll fix it. You'll correct this error. You help other people to build and become independent, not to do their work for them, but to become independent, and then you discover that the more you give, the higher you go. You get the recognition and the admiration of your people. um, and this kind of leadership, this kind of quality, that should be the hallmark of those that we follow. So my next slide, I'm talking about if you're laid waste, right? We have to understand that God levels the foundations. He levels things when he's not happy about things. Maybe there's something in our nation that's corrupting it that needs to be eradicated. And God does level the foundations, right? And it doesn't feel good. But then we can think about what we did wrong, how to be in alignment with God, how to partner with him, how we come back and we rebuild, you know? And it is the perfect time to build. We have to stop fighting first, but it's the perfect time to build and to decide that we're going to set the right table. God is going to bless the table that you set. Are you going to set a table of revenge, you know, of hate? Are you going to put those things on your table and ask God to bless it? Because he's not going to. You won't see any multiplication there. You'll only find death there. It's going to take your life from you. But if you set this table that I don't want to be bitter anymore, I don't want to be angry, I want to find joy in life, I want to sing again, I want to dance again, I want to laugh again, I want to live again, I want to see my grandchildren grow up. If you get in here, then that's the table that God's going to bless. And you have to make the choice. You have to choose who you'll become. Next slide. Oh, that wasn't my last slide. So that's all I have to say. You see, my voice is all hoarse, right? But I wanted to put one other thing to the test, right? Um, you are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Okay, so I can be hoarse and I can't control it, right? But if I sing, the hoarseness goes away. So my question for my Jewish friends who are always watching over me, love you guys. My question for you is that the power of the Shira, you know? The Shira is a song that God gives you. It's a weapon against judgment. It's a weapon against the attacks. It's a weapon that makes things turn away, right? So you see how when I speak it, I get like restricted, like I'm under attack, right? And I can't get my voice out clearly. Everything is hoarse. But I can sing. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. Ain't that cool? Pretty cool if you ask me. Um, so if that's a weapon for me, right? Maybe we should think about how we do warfare. And if I'm able to invoke the power of the Shira, is that how I want to say it? I don't know. But if I'm able to sing Shira in the constriction of my vocal cords here, right? And it comes out smooth and uncracked. What more can Shira do for other people? Can we lay down weapons and pick up song? Can we turn things away? Can we make the choice that we want to do better, to be better, to have better, and we don't want to lose anymore, you know? And can we trust God with justice? Can we trust Him to restore us? Can we trust Him to give us strength to do this? Can we trust Him to change us? Can we open ourselves enough to allow Him to do this for us? All right. And that is all I have to say. So I'm going to say, God bless and have a good day.